Não vou usar o microfone, penso que não só necessário, penso que não. Nós vamos dar continuidade às sextas-feiras da quarta, não é? O programa, como sabem, em que tentamos apresentar diversos temas de interesse na área do mar, em particular nas áreas de investigação e ciência do mar. Vou fazer uma mudança para a língua inglesa para apresentar o François Simard. Okay? So, we have today François Simard from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. He is one of the deputy directors of this institution and has worked for quite a long time in different subjects, quite wide subjects related to the marine environment and the interface of people with the marine environment. Pascal has got work on fisheries, particularly traditional and local fisheries and fishing, aquaculture, particularly in the areas of sustainable aquaculture, and for quite a while now, lately, working in areas of marine planning and conservation. I've met Pascal first time. François. Pascal. That's another name. You know. Okay, I met François first time in 2006, in a conference in Malta, and it was a conference on ocean aquaculture. So I was a little bit surprised of meeting people that are involved in conservation in this type of events. And over the time, I could see the importance of relating different subjects of research, having to do with conservation, having to do with marine literacy, involve all these different areas with the area of aquaculture. Because we all of us, we're working in the same media. We're talking about the sea, we're talking about our interface with the marine environment, with the marine species. And we all think of making use of this in a way, in a sustainable way. So I could see the importance of working, of joining different areas of research and different areas of activities all together. In recent time, we were involved in Madeira in marine planning, marine spatial planning. We are having at the moment the plan of situation being done until the end of this year, and we have all contributed. Most of us have contributed to these plans, local plans, and in our different areas of research. And I think this presence of François with us might give us some enlightenment, some different input, a different way of seeing and thinking about the way, with this experience, long experience in these areas, the way we are facing this challenge of marine spatial planning. So I invite you for this talk with François. François, s'il vous plaît.
Okay, bon dia. But I'm afraid this is the only word I can say in Portuguese, and I'm very sorry for that. I would love to speak Portuguese, but so I will do it in English. So I could do that in French or in Spanish too. I mean, English is the usual language for that kind of presentation. So thank you very much for inviting me. My first time in Madeira. For me, it's also a very nice opportunity to discover this island. It's a great pleasure. I arrived yesterday, so I had no opportunity to see the island. I would have maybe preferred to do this discussion after my visit of the island, because I will stay until Sunday, and Gus Carlos will visit the island. So I won't be able to take much examples on the reality of the island, but I hope that it will anyway be useful as a discussion. So, as Carlos said, I currently working with IUCN as Deputy Director of the Global Marine and Polar Program. I'm a marine biologist by training, and I worked in the 80s on fisheries biology and fisheries management, 8-10 years, and then I switched to something quite different. I worked 12 years in the Oceanic Museum in Monaco, so I was more in education, in exhibition, ocean literacy. And since 2003, I'm working with IUCN on conservation. I've been working during 6 years in the Mediterranean. I was based in Malaga, and I was coordinator for the marine program there in Malaga, so we're working at the Mediterranean level. And since 2009, I'm in headquarters in Switzerland, and I'm doing some more global stuff, many different things. But I keep my interest in fisheries and aquaculture, and in how to deal with ocean conservation, not in isolation. That was a bit what you just said, Carlos. My key interest is to understand and to disseminate ideas about marine conservation, but not to do that in isolation with human activity. I think our main challenge is to reconcile or to promote or to develop synergies between conservation and sustainable use of marine resources. And here my kind of co-author is Dan Lafollet, and Dan has been working many years with Natural England. He's from the UK, and he's currently the vice chair of this commission on water ocean on protected areas. He's Marine vice chair, and so he's our head, both for marine protected area thinking. And I work a lot with him, and I would love to be him by the way with me. So this is double check. I will explain a bit more. So my slides are either in English or sometimes in French. Why not? But nothing is in Portuguese again. Sorry for that. So IUCN is, I'm not sure if all of you know what is IUCN. So IUCN is a quite old organization created in 1948 in France under the UN system, but not within the UN system. It's UNESCO was the one who was creating this organization, but this was decided at that time not to have another UN body, but to have something very special. And we are still very special in the sense that we have 1,200 members, and you can imagine it's not only states, because there is no 1,200 states, but states are members. And although we don't have the same amount of states as some other UN organization, and we have, I think, 85 states members. Portugal is a member. And, but also all NGOs are members. So it's a unique organization with states and NGOs. So we are an international organization such as the UN system, and we are also an NGO such as WWF or Conservation International or others. So we are really a kind of an umbrella organization for the discussion between states and NGOs, between the civil society and the governments. And this is a very important role because nature conservation should be done at this level. It's not only a matter of states, it's not only a matter of people, both. It's quite a big organization. We have more than 1,000 employees and staff all over the world. And in Switzerland, in headquarters, we are like 120. And what is very important is, so this is 1,000 staff, secretariat, members, I've already told you, and commissions. And I will come back a bit on commission. Commissions are experts that are willing to provide their knowledge to us, to work together with us, and to really work in collaboration. And of course, other partners and experts which are not members of commission also. So it's a kind of a very broad organization. It's not only staff, it's not only members, it's a lot of people working together. We have the status of observator at the UN. So we can talk at the UN General Assembly, for example. And this is our mission. So it's about supporting or influencing, encouraging, and assisting societies, broadly speaking, for conservation and use of natural resources sustainably. So what our program, I mean, I'm vice director and deputy director, is the Global Marine and Polar program. So I won't go too much on this, but as I said before, we are working with scientists, with conservationists, such as NGOs, but also with decision makers in government, public partners, private partners. We are working with everybody. We are a very, very inclusive organization. Science-based and natural-based solutions are our model. What we are based on. Natural-based solution is quite a new concept, I will talk about it, and science-based solutions, I mean, you know well what does it mean. And mobilizing decision makers, media, and raising awareness in the public. So this is our attack. So activities of the Global Marine program is very broad. There's a lot of publications. I have some publications here about MPA that will get back to you. We have a website, we do also some expeditions, movies, exhibition, and conferences, workshops, and things like that. And for example, on conferences, we had our big congress. We have a congress every 4 years. It was in Hawaii. It's really not easy to go there, but it was in Hawaii in September this year. And we had like 10,000 participants. It's a big event for all conservation people. This is about the commissions. So there are 6 commissions. I don't want to go into details, but this is a commission dealing with the red list. Maybe you heard about the red list of endangered species. So this is a commission. All the experts are within this commission. And this is a commission on protected areas. We have the data for these right here. And I want to mention this commission, which is commission on ecosystem management. And here we deal with many transversal things, and I'm chairing this group, and Carlos is a member of this group. It's called Ecosystem-Based Aquaculture Group. So we are looking at what might be an aquaculture which is sustainable, and what are the issues related to sustainable aquaculture. So my discussion will go through those points. I will be quite long on this definition and what does it mean MPA. It's very important to look at that, but in the concept of ecosystem approach, not in isolation again. I will discuss quickly connectivity and representative network of MPAs and other effective area-based conservation measures, which are not MPA, and what they are not, why they are not MPAs, but why they are also important. I will discuss MSP, marine spatial planning, and why MPAs are important in marine spatial planning. I will finish with one slide on MPA and aquaculture because we are working together on this at the moment. So first, let's start by the definition of a marine protected area, because this is the base and this is very basic. So this has been revised and it's under discussion for a while, but this is the one we have at the moment. It's a protected area. So it's not this is a definition of protected area, not marine. And we discuss if there are some difficulties or differences between protected area and marine protected area. So protected area is a clearly defined geographical space, recognized, dedicated, and managed through legal or other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature with associated ecosystem services and cultural values. So, and each word here is quite important to look at. So, well, I want to discuss, I mean, all my discussion about this definition, but you can see it's quite open. It's not a very narrow definition. And if you think of what can go in this, a lot of things can go into this. So this is the first point. It's a very important definition. And as ecosystem services, cultural values, for example, are things which we don't always think about. We think in terms of species conservation, but not on ecosystem services conservation, for example, or even cultural values conservation. And this opens a lot of thinking. So, having said that, this definition exists and it's good, but there is still a number of big problems. There is a lot of definition, a lot of figures. I like this one because it's what we're talking about, and reserve, which parts, blah blah blah, and nobody knows exactly what does it mean and what are the MPAs and what. So, all over the world there are more than 300 designation types of what can be an MPA, so it's really a mess. But at the same time, it has to be very open, and it has to be open to welcome any kind of not any kind, but many kinds of initiatives. So in order to tackle this, we have those categories. And this is a very, very important table. This is the category for all protected areas, not only marine. And it goes from 1 to 6, and it's 1B and 1B. So there is 7 categories. And categories are about the management objectives, the conservation objectives. So, for example, 1A and B, which are, it goes from the strict conservation to the more open conservation. All are conservation. No one is better than the other. There's no kind of 1 is good and 6 is bad, but there are different objectives. So this is the one who are managed mainly for science. You close an area, you protect it, you conserve it as it is in order to study it. So in this one you will see later that nobody can get into, even scientists, I mean, they get into that really from time to time, but it's a very closed area. And this is also kind of reserve, wilderness area. We keep it wide. The notion of wide is also important in protected areas. What is wide? But you will see that in marine, the concept of wilderness is difficult to tackle. You have to think this is the kind of terrestrial thinking. It's old. It's basically, I'm not happy to say that, but it's basically what the big national park of the US would say. Sometimes, so it's difficult to understand how we can use that for European overpopulated place where wilderness doesn't mean much, and what doesn't mean wilderness in most of Europe. Anyway, we have the national parks, which are mainly for protection and recreation. So of course, people can get it, it's for recreation or education, but recreation is interesting because not even the education is just leisure. National monuments, for conservation-specific natural features, but this, for the marine, is very difficult to use. Habitat specific management area for recovery of some species, things like that. Protected landscape or seascape, and marine resource protected area. And those two are very important also in Europe. Because this is managed mainly for landscape, seascape, conservation and recreation. It means, for example, if you have an area with traditional agricultural land, and take this example for Madeira, because I have just looked yesterday of how traditional agriculture is important in Madeira, you can protect that because it has a cultural value and also a biodiversity value. There is a biodiversity living in those kind of traditional agriculture. And likewise in marine, you have some traditional use of the marine resources that are shaping the seascape, and you want to protect that as it is. So it's together with the human activities that are taking place for years, or traditionally. And the last one, 6, is management mainly for the sustainable use of natural ecosystems. So this is very open to all kinds of activity, human activities, if they are sustainable and if they meet with the objective. So this is the more, let's say, open. And this is very good, for example, now in marine, for huge areas. If you were to wish to protect, as an MPA, all the national waters of Madeira, for example, because some islands now are doing that. It's always in this category, because all kind of human activity could take place according to the objectives of the conservation you want to put in place. Of course, this is a scheme that is good so that when it goes to the marine realm, you have a number of issues that are very, very important. And the first one is the 3D. I mean, all the terrestrial people, they don't think in 3D, they think in maps and the land. But in marine, you cannot think only in 2D. I mean, 3D is so important. And even 4D, because it's taking on time much rapidly than on Earth. So, how to use those categories with this 3D environment? For example, this category 1, closed area, what does it currently mean in terms of marine? Can you really close a place in the sea? How do you do that? How you can avoid the water to pass by with whatever the water brings. Of course, it's true also on land. On land, it's difficult to close. You have streams, you have the clouds coming and the rain, but it's still not the same thing. So here we have an issue in marine for closing places. Kind of problem being downstream. All marine areas are downstream of something. I mean, all coming from Earth, the waters, it's going to the sea, and from the coast, it's going to deep water. So, more far you go from the coast, more you are downstream of something. And so how you can protect from upstream. This is quite difficult. When you are upstream on top of the mountain, it's easier to protect because just avoid people to go there. But when you are in the bottom of the sea, how you make to prevent things, I mean, we are talking microplastic, for example, this morning. How do you protect from microplastic to get into the bottom of the sea? So this downstream issue is a problem. And then this is another issue. It's the problem of open access, and there is no fences in the sea. The protected area system is based on strict limits, which you cannot go. I mean, there is a fence, and if you go in the sea, you don't have this. And it's not ownership. It's national, of course, or not national. Yes, there are some places which are reserved for fishermen, for example, but it's not that common, and it depends on the countries. But it's basically common. So how do you do to make sure that people are not using it? Because it's not belonging really to anyone but the state. So this is a problem of governance. Boundaries, same kind of issue. Boundaries cannot be really enforced or regulated easily if there is no fences again, and it's difficult to make sure. Well, we have tools. We have tools now for we can really monitor the boats with remote sensing tools or satellite tools to know exactly where they are. So enforcement is not impossible, but it's still more difficult than that. And this is also important. To what extent the extractive activities can be regulated in a place where it's far away from where you are. So all the issue of compliance is also a problem, much more important in marine than on land. So you see, it's not easy to apply the categories. So how we do that? We have a number of principles to apply the category. So an MPA is a place where the primary objective is conservation of nature. So this is, I will come back to that later. A place which is closed or reserved for other purposes than conservation cannot be an MPA, although it might have good impact for conservation of nature. But I will come back to that. So again, the primary objective makes a category. Because on the sea, you would have larger MPA, understand that? And within those MPAs, we have several categories. Maybe a small place is a reserve. Around that, you have a place where some activities can take place, and around that, you have other activities can take place. So you have zonation according to the category. Not all your MPA can be category 1, category 3 or 5, but you have subcategories in the same area. It makes it complicated, but you have to touch. And the primary objectives are very important. All categories contribute to conservation, this is clear, but not all categories may be applicable to your MPA, of course. Some MPAs are not categories. Not all areas that achieve marine conservation will be an MPA. That's upside down. You can have areas which achieve marine conservation but will not be an MPA for many reasons we discussed. The choice of category is independent of the governance mechanism. It's not a reflection on management effectiveness. It's a reflection on management objective, not effectiveness. You can discuss that because if there is not effective, but this is the mentality of conservation people. And this is a very important point because it's an idea where the fisheries or aquaculture or any activity groups have a difficulty to discuss with MP because with conservation people. Conservation people, of course, we are very interested by being effective. Otherwise, we don't. But it's maybe not the most important point sometimes. And of course, I said that categories are not intended to be hierarchical. They are not all good. So those are examples where you have marine area which achieve something in terms of conservation, but who are not MPAs. Fishery management area, this is the classical example. It's not managed for conservation of biodiversity, it's managed for conservation of fisheries resources. We fully understand it's important, we fully understand that it should be promoted, but let's be clear, this is not an MPA, this is fisheries management area, and that's fine, and we are happy with it. But it's not an MPA. For example, community area management probably for sustainable extraction of marine products, maybe it's not important for Madeira, but in many developing countries, we are working a lot on Madagascar, for example, there are locally managed areas. People are managing the areas, local coastal communities, they are in isolation, they're doing well. It's not an MPA. We say it's a locally managed marine area, and it's fantastic, and we are promoting that, but it's not an MPA. And so on and so forth. I don't think we had marine coastal management system managed for tourism. Even the included area of construction tourism might not be a protected area. These are important. Wind farms are all platforms that incidentally help to build around underwater structure by excluding fishing on other vessels. Cannot be a marine protected area, although they have an impact on marine conservation or a role in marine conservation. Likewise, for pipeline exclusion, military zones, that we recognize that those military zones might have a very good impact on marine conservation because they are close to anyone. I mean, in terms of closing a place, maybe the military are the best guys to do that, much more stronger than anybody else. So they might have a role, but it's not an MPA. Let's not be just to mix things. And large areas. This is under discussion because many regions at the moment are, in Ireland especially, we are discussing that, are trying to have all their exclusive economic zone under a protected area. It's Seychelles are doing that, and I think Palau or Kiribati in the and French Polynesia, and all around Galapagos. So they are declaring big areas. We consider it as an MPA because it has clear objective. If they are not conserving big conservation objective, only exclusion, it's going to be an MPA. So there's discussion about all this, and I think that discussion is very relevant with Madeira, or a place where you want to look at your marine territory as a whole and how you can organize marine spatial planning and so on. We go to marine conservation, marine MPAs that is important to address. This is about the governance type, governed by government, shared governance, private governance. This does not apply too much on the marine because on the marine there is a private owned land. And protected areas on land, there is a lot of very good protected areas that are fully private, which is not the case in marine. So we have here an issue of how to apply this to marine protected areas. And this is another point I wanted to mention because I think this is very relevant for Madeira, I guess. This is how to look at the verticality, I mean this is the third dimension of the sea. And this is an example of a real MPA in Australia, which is a seamount. And you can have a vertical zonation of this MPA, which means that here you have an isolation category 1A, strictly reserved, nobody goes there, we keep it as it is. We don't want any fishermen, any mining, anything taking place here, because it's important biodiversity. But at the same time, we understand that this is maybe 1,500 meters deep or more, 4,000 meters deep, and it should not maybe not include all the water there. So here, although we keep it as a protected area, because otherwise we know well that the downstream effect will go this way, also pollution. So we keep it as a special place, but it can be another category of ocean, which in this case might be category 6, which allows some sustainable fisheries, for example. So here is the reserve, and here is the sustainable fisheries area. So this, I think, maybe this makes sense for Madeira or big ocean territories. We don't push this idea, frankly, because we think it's important. We don't push it because it makes things very complicated also at the same time. Because we are not used, what does it mean on the map? You know, so you have we don't used to have this this vertical approach. I mean, it's difficult to implement it. So it's not that I'm promoting this idea, I just say that this is quite possible, although we don't promote it. It's possible at least in terms of thinking. So this is all the human activities, maybe it's too small for you to read, and this is the categories, and this is very easy to understand. In red, it's not possible. In green, it's okay. And all yellow and with small signs, it depends on the case. So research, non-extractive, it's possible in many categories, but in one age, sometimes it's not possible to do even research. Aquaculture, we take aquaculture, it's not possible, it's considered as not possible from 1 to 3. 4 we don't really know, and 5 and 6 it's yes. So this is a very broad thinking. I mean, if you go into details, and then we come back to the last slide on this. This is not as easy as it seems, but this is just to show you that there is many activities that can be developed within an MPA or a protected area. It's not that protected area as a whole is excluding activities. This is large-scale, low-intensity tourism, so it's kind of ecotourism, but at a large scale, so it's almost everywhere. Extractive research is getting a bit tougher. You have fisheries, recreational fisheries. You have habitation, people living there. Well, in marine we don't have this problem, but in industrial, in city 5, I told you, it's traditional. People are living there, and it's what we want. If we go in, for example, it is on fisheries, this is long-term sustainable local fishing practices, regional fishing collecting, traditional fishing collecting, and collection for research, and depends on the category, it's yes and no. So even fisheries, which is difficult thing, developing fisheries and developing MPS at the time, is something, there's a food for thought. Anyway, it's not closed at all. The door is not closed for that. And we are now working, I was saying that already a bit more, but on aquaculture in 2 details, trying to look at different categories of aquaculture. Fish, seaweeds, and low intensity, high intensity. Okay, so let's go to the international agenda. Now I've set the scene for what is an NPA. So we had a very important meeting in 2010 in Nagoya, and it was a conference of parties of the Convention on Biodiversity, the CBD, and a number of targets were accepted by the states, and this is the one from MPA. So by 2020, 10% of coastal and marine areas are conserved through effectively and equitably managed ecologically representative and well-connected systems of protected areas and integrated into wider landscape and system. And I will come back on many aspects of this. And those are the other targets that are relevant to that. Sustainable fisheries, pollution control, invasive alien species control, management of pressure on the coral reef, and management of carbon stocks, for example, which are also relevant for marine areas. So this is the most important international policy guidelines that we have for working on EPA development. On the 10%, here we are at the moment. This is the updated for the Congress at Hawaii in September this year. So those are the declared marine protected areas, according to all these criteria it was before. Some of them are huge, as you can see. In Australia, I was telling that this is quite an interesting example for us as well. You can see on the map, this is reality. It's covered by EPAs, and it's quite, you can see it's quite a network of EPAs, network with South America or Africa. Europe, of course, is a lot of very small EPAs. I guess probably we are, I don't know what there is done, maybe. You're doing well. There's no better. But we are at the moment 11.5%. So you can say, oh, it's fantastic, we wanted to have 10, but it's only of the EZ. And this EZ represents half of the ocean. We don't have, at the moment, any MPAs in the high seas, in the area beyond national jurisdiction, because we cannot declare. We don't have the means through the international law of the sea to do that. So at the end of the day, it's not 11, but it's half of it that we are tracking at the moment, which is pretty good. And some countries are already at 20 or something like that, and it's progressing quite well at the moment. Although it's declaration, and we can ask what is the effectiveness of this, frankly, so in many cases. But this is a number one. It's not enough as it's good. So about the high seas, there is now going on a very important negotiation in New York, in the UN, on a legally binding international agreement to safeguard the high seas under the Convention on the Law of the Sea. And this is on those topics, but it's what we are here, it's area development tools, this is MPA. How to have MPAs in area beyond national jurisdiction. At the moment, any country can declare an MPA in the middle of the ocean. You can do that, but it's applying only to your country, to your flag states. All the ships belong to the country which is declaring, they have to respect it, but only the country, the national ships. So it's not efficient enough, of course. We don't have a mean to have all countries binded to one declaration of MPA in the high seas, and we need that. So this is the negotiation taking place at the moment. Also, this is the timeline. We are now here, so we are in the decision to develop a legal binding instrument was taken in 2015, so 1 year ago, in September, by the General Assembly of the UN. And we are now in this, and there is 4 preparatory commissions taking place, and 2 take place in 16 and 2 more in 17. And if it goes well, we'll have in 18 a treaty conference for a new treaty on the high seas, which allows us to have MPAs on the high seas. So a lot of people, scientists and NGOs, are working on the list of the potential MPAs in the high seas to make sure to be prepared, that when it will be agreed in the UN, that we have all the files are ready to have those important MPAs in the high seas. So this is a quite important path. If we can get this on and being strong, we will have a very good tool. Although, of course, again, it will be far away. I mean, we are talking about places which are more than 200 miles away from any coast. So there is no real great way to control what is occurring there, but by satellite. But at the same time, there is not a lot of people there. It's not that it's daily people coming there and back. It's far away. So it's only big boats, and but it will be important to realize that these high seas, which is also all the water column, so it's deep, is something that we should really protect, also conserve for the ecosystem services. So this is the target I'm feeding, and for terrestrial 17%, we are well in 10% for coastal and marine. So are conserved to effectively and equitably managed. So this is a very important point, because I was telling you before, if there's only numbers and it's not enough. So here we have couple of tools that I will quickly go through. We have what we call the green list. It's not as famous as the red list, but it's green list. It's positive list. It's to show how well some areas are doing. So it's a list of well-managed protected areas, according to a number of criteria. So this is beginning, and we think this is a very good initiative to encourage good practices. So it's not only for marine, it's also for terrestrial, promoting success and achievement towards conservation outcomes, recognizing exemplary efforts, and help partners to achieve quality. And this goes through a number of standards, value and significance, design and establishment, threat and constraint, and all that kind of standards that we're looking at to show how we can do well when we are at management of an MPA. For MPA, we are again late compared with terrestrial people, but we are trying to have some coastal places which are well managed and on the green list. So this is one example of what can be done. Another on another, approach. We are trying to certify marine protected area professionals. What is a good? There is a long tradition of rangers in the African parks. We should have the same kind of people working in the NPAs. People that are aware, that know how to do it, and that are really professional of marine conservation. And I think certifying good professional of marine conservation is important if you want to achieve some good management. But those are examples. Anyway, we are trying hard to make sure that the objectives are met, although we have a lot of difficulties. The other point, ecologically representative and well-connected system of protected areas. I will be very short on this. As an example of Australia, you can see that all the country is covered by protected areas. At least in terms of representativeness, I think it's the idea is to have all habitats of a country at least represented in one EPA. So if you want to think how can be the best representative network of MPA in Madeira, you have to make a list of habitats and make sure that at least all habitats are protected in one MPA. It's a way of thinking, a way of approaching the case. And well connected. Connection is in marine is extremely important because animals are moving a lot. So making sure that if you protect there, if fishes or whatever they are migrating or moving, they have other places to go where they are also protected. So connectivity is important. It's also a very, very difficult test because we don't know much in terms of marine connectivity. We know a lot, but we don't know dispersion of larvae, dispersion of fishes. We know it exists, of course, we know a lot, but we still need a lot of research to make sure this is what connectivity means and how to apply many models, for example, on that. If you're a scientist on marine population, you know what I'm talking about. So this is very important to look at. And the last one is other effective area-based conservation measures. This is a very important point, and we are trying to look at that into details. It's what I was explaining first, which are not MPAs, but important for conservation. So we are working on a definition of ECM, which is similar to the MPA, other effective conservation means. A clearly defined geographical space beyond the protected area network. It's not within, it's beyond. Governed by, managed, and managed in ways that delivers long-term and effective conservation of nature, associated ecosystem services, and cultural values, so the same terms that we have in MPAs, regardless of its current dedication. So this is the point. MPAs are dedicated to conservation, and this is not dedicated to conservation, but it has impact on conservation. And this is very important when you plan your marine spatial planning, your marine territory, to have both MPAs dedicated to conservation, but to understand that you have other measures that can play a role in marine conservation. So the destination is the same as protected areas, but the origin and journey may be very different. And you have to get this in mind when you do marine spatial planning. So I won't go through all this, but it's like this is also the areas we have these other measures, and if we can discuss it much more. But location, management, governance, effectiveness, long-term conservation is again important. We don't want to spot things. Recognition of conservation. How does it play the role of conservation? And the other very important policy framework is the Sustainable Development Goal. Maybe you heard about that. This is a more broader approach. It's about sustainable development. And then goal 14 is about conserve and sustain use. The use of ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. This is more development, and this is also the big framework for thinking in terms of sustainable development and marine conservation. Here, I won't go too much into details about sustainable development because otherwise we'll talk several hours. But I think this is the moment to introduce ecosystem services because here we are not with the SDG. SDG means sustainable goal. We are not in conservation. We are in sustainable development, and then it's about society. It's about economics. This is development, and then arise the concept of ecosystem services, which are all the services that we get from ecosystem. It's not just the environmental services, it's the ecosystem services. So it's, for example, the fish, for the fishery sector, is an ecosystem service. The fish is coming from nature, it's an ecosystem service. More broadly, you can say that the oxygen that we have in the atmosphere coming from the nature is an ecosystem service. So it's all what is coming from the nature that we use as a resource or as energy. And this is an interesting graph done by UNEP with the window. It shows what is the value. They are trying to get value because it's services, so it can be valued in monetary speaking. This is in billion of US dollars per year. And you can see from the mountains to the sea where are the important values in terms of ecosystem services. And basically, this part from the coast to the sea is much more important than this part from the coast to the mountain. And the most important is the opposite, according to the interpretation. It might be debate, but this is the most important ecosystem services are coming from the ocean, the open ocean. But the second one is coming from wetlands, which are mainly coastal, since they are sometimes freshwater. And of course, all biomes are important, citrus and algae bed are super important, even in the tropical forest, according to this study, which is, I don't know when it was done, but it's oh, this is not new, it's 1995, so it's already 20 years ago. So, yeah, this is quite important in terms of ecosystem services. We have to put that in perspective with what is happening at the EU level with all the blue growth discussion. Development of the blue growth sector. I'm sure some of you are involved with the blue growth stuff and stuff already. Blue growth plan. This is from the DG Maritime Affairs and how to link that with conservation. I think this is a very important discussion. But recognizing that the oceans is important for the economy and for the society. So this is just about the project that I was part of, which is Sea for Society, to look at how we can link much more, and it's also linked with ocean literacy. And I was working this with maybe with Telmo and Thiago. Telmo, but you know where it is, people from Portugal. I was working with them on this, and this was quite important to look at how we can really not. My point here is not we cannot work anymore in terms of here is conservation, here is development, here is economy. We have to work all this together. We have to have a broad thinking, taking into consideration conservation of services, conservation of species and ecosystem, but also because they are providing services, and putting that into the broader picture of the economical development. And reaching a place where the society really is linked to the sea. Here is a slide about the importance of the marine conservation for blue carbon, for regarding climate change, but you know that the ocean has a huge role to play for climate change adaptation and mitigation. So we are publishing a number of things. I never used to publish a lot of reports, but those two are quite interesting. This is, again, you can find my friend Dana from here. The management of natural coastal carbon sinks. How we know that typical forests are important for carbon storage, but the coastal areas are super important for carbon storage at different levels. But also, the management of natural coastal in open sea has been studied now, and we know that from many perspectives, the ocean is important also in terms of carbon storage. And this is an ecosystem service that the ocean is proposing. By many means, carbon can be in the bottom of the sea, but also within animals. We are now trying to understand how fishes, healthy fishing population might be seen as the benefits are going back. It's like any kind of investment. But it's not in making new cars or making new technology, it's in managing environmental effects. So we are trying, it's not existing yet, but it's an idea, how to attract big investment from the private sector into management of marine protected areas to make sure it's well managed and it has a good benefits to the society. And the benefits are also back to the actioners which I'm putting the money in. A lot of thinking about that. How to really make that conservation is not in isolation for the society of the economy, but really part of our economy. Marine spatial planning. So, and we are reaching the end of my discussion here. So this is from UNESCO. UNESCO and the Volunteer Scientific Commission are the one we have been putting in place all the basic thinking on marine spatial planning. And so you can go to their website and we'll have a lot of this is the base of it. So the marine spatial planning is a public process of analyzing and allocating the spatial and temporal distribution of human activities in marine areas to achieve ecological, economical, and social objectives. So it's not only about ecology, not only about economy, and it's all together. It includes ecosystem-based, area-based, integrative, adaptive, and strategic and participatory. So it's really open to all kinds of approaches. It's not an end, it's a tool. It's not we achieve because we want to do something, it's really a tool. And it's in a way to balance development and conservation. What marine spatial is not, it's not a substitute to single sector planning. Marine spatial planning needs also a fisheries planning, aquaculture planning, maritime traffic planning. It's not something we'll avoid to have that. It's not a one-time plan, it's a long-term plan that evolves. It's not only conservation planning, but it includes conservation planning. And it's not ocean zoning, it's not only about zoning, so it's also what you want to do with your activities. Zoning is fine, it's important, and it many times on my next slide is that it took the appearance of a zoning, but it's a tool to look at how you can manage your activities one to the other. It's a really integrated approach. This is an example of in the US, but it can be anywhere else. And it's always very complicated. It's always like this. And I think the next slide is even because this is a land and this is a sea. Between England and Belgium, the place where the channel, where there is so many activities for many. So when you look at that, I don't want to go into detail, but you see a super busy place. But all this, of course, is not land, so it's moving. Maybe this is only for a while, and then it's disappearing, and this is coming again. It's not always like this. So you have marine spatial planning is also try to cope with this permanent overlaps of activities. In the marine area, you cannot say, here is my protected area, this is my harbor and my lines for maritime traffic. No, you have to cope with the fact that your maritime traffic might go through the protected area at some point, because it's like this. So, my message here will be that, as it was said in the UNESCO paper, that marine spatial planning should be think around MPAs. I think MPAs is the one which conserves the ecosystem services, should be at the center of the marine spatial planning. So it's first you can look at what do you have, what are your natural resources you want to protect, how to conserve those services or those goods, and then you can put your activities on this. Is this activity, if I put that fisheries here, would I conserve this what I want to conserve? And if I put maritime traffic, would I conserve what I want to conserve? So conservation is maybe the first step. It's not the only one. First step, and then you put all your activities in order to make sure you keep your resources, but you have also your development. And I think this is the last slide. This is a project I was talking about aquaculture. So we have been trying, and we will issue a kind of policy brief by the end of the year to look at all the synergies between aquaculture and MPAs. So we look into details, all kinds of MPAs, and there is also here work of introducing to the aquaculture community what is an MPA, because as many sectors, they are trend is to see MPAs are places where there's a problems, let's say. MPAs, we don't want to cope with MPA when you are in the aquaculture, and it's likewise for fisheries. And upside down, I mean upside down. Likewise, the MPA people, they don't want to talk too much with the fisheries or with problems of that. But so our thinking is to how we can make understand the aquaculture people that MPA is not excluding them, but it might helping them, and how MPA can be supported by some activities of aquaculture. Aquaculture can be also algae, or can be extensive things. It's not only intensive tuna farming, for example, which is probably the bad image that people have in mind, but it's many other things. So we look at that into details, and we will talk about integration and synergies of aquaculture and MPAs, and we'll use this policy brief by the end of the year. And I think that's it. Well, this is my kind of conclusion, but it's maybe next week I will not comment that. It's really what do we mean by nature-based solution, and how IUCN is tackling nature-based solution for meeting the global challenges. But this is very broad thinking, so maybe I can keep this on the screen and have some questions. I'm happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, François. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think your work on the first point we can take from your work is to if you want to get involved in any special planning, we should work on the basis of it. That is, we need to provide information, we need to provide the databases, we need to do the data analysis, and we need to provide these tools for people involved in planning in order to produce the protected areas and do all the special planning, very special planning. I think that we're quite pleased to know our role in all this. The Oceanic Observatory of Madeira. Thank you. Now, we have a time for questions now. And then, if you want, later on, François would be happy, I think, to meet you for any, if you want to do some special meetings apart from the talk, we can also arrange with either today afternoon or tomorrow. Okay? Because François is going to be with us until the weekend. So you will be available and pleased to meet you. Okay? Please, questions.
Yeah. Thank you for the very interesting presentation indeed. I've learned a lot today. So I gather that this marine planning issue is more of a top-down decision than a bottom-up decision, meaning that managers and decision-makers decide what is interesting to protect. I guess what I'm getting at, is there any level of requirement, pre-requirement of the level of scientific information that needs to exist in order to categorize the different marine protected areas, or it can be simply a top-down decision from the management perspective?
I see your point. No, I mean, it's clear, back to the slide, that it is a participatory approach. My special planning cannot be a top-down approach. It should involve all the stakeholders, so all the sectors that are interested, all the interested sectors. It should involve the citizens, they are not from a sector, but the citizens. And of course, it should involve the scientists and all the scientific data. More you have scientific data, easier it is to decide. Basically, it's for my special planning. If you are sure that this is what you have in this place, it's easier to protect it or to use it than if you don't know. So more you have data, easier it is, because everyone can rely on the data, but data are not only scientific data, but data might be traditional knowledge, local knowledge, professional knowledge, which are maybe not as sure from some perspective as scientific knowledge, but I think a good scientist is also somebody that's not sure what he is. It's always, because we don't know exactly, that we look for something else. So, but all knowledge are very, very, very important to share. sharing knowledge is, I would say, the first step of the marine spatial plan. And then, on this knowledge, you build some decision-making systems. And each one keeps his responsibility. Of course, the government is a government, and the one who is responsible for the decision-taking is the government. That's not the citizen. The citizen has his way to participate to that and to bring his own data, his own interest, and to defend his own interest. So it's a should be a very, very democratic process based on the basis of available knowledge. And when you have less knowledge, you have more discussion you will need to agree on something. But the knowledge will help you to be on the same page.
Yeah, sure, but in principle you can make decisions without very much knowledge.
You can, of course. It's a matter of agree on something. Because the knowledge is not the one with it's supporting the decision, but it's not the one who makes the decision. It's decision made by people that are involved, according to what they know.
Sure.
No questions?
I have two questions. Very interesting presentation. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge with us. My first question would be, are there guidelines followed by IUCN to determine to which extent, and this is just an example, to which extent a fishery is classified as traditional or not? One other example, are there specific guidelines from IUCN to determine what would be considered a biome that would require protection? Because, again, as much as we know, it depends where we draw the line. We can go at a rock level or at a whole level. So just for us to have a perspective, whether IUCN provides these guidelines within their reports and publications, is there anything available?
There is a number of guidelines, but I don't think there is guidelines for that kind of precision. And those two questions are very relevant because for fisheries, I mean, there is two schools, I would say. One school would be to rely on what FAO FAO has a number of guidelines on what is traditional, which is small scale, what is industrial, what is... Some people say it's not enough because this is only from the fisheries perspective, and we need also perspective also to decide what is traditional, what is small scale. So it's a permanent discussion, and I think it's the best guideline from IUCN would be to look at that case by case, and the group can decide what are the boundaries of being traditional or not being traditional. So you go to the area you are looking at, and thinking there is a big discussion for years on the small-scale fisheries in West Africa, which is not very far from here, in Mauritania, in Senegal. Of course, they have only small boats, and they own their boats, and so the owner is on board of the boat. This is one of the criteria for being artisanal or small scale. But at the same time, there are so many of them, and they are organized in terms of commercial organization so well that it's kind of industrial exploitation altogether. So, how do you consider the small scale? Because of the small boat and the structure of the daily fisheries, or you consider what the impact is on the stock, and it's much similar to an industry. So, depends what you want to achieve, what you want to show, and what you want to do with that. And I think for the biome ideas, all the ideas of boundaries are super difficult in marine. It depends also what you want to achieve. And one of the main base for discussion is to make sure that the boundaries you are deciding somehow cope with the administrative boundaries. Because we are talking about conservation measures. The measure should be implementable, applicable by somebody. So if you take that biome is a part of the internal waters, a part of the territorial sea, a part of the part of the high seas, this is scientifically speaking, ecologically speaking, it's a biome. But then what do you do with that concretely? And you can't have the same measures in the high seas and in the waters. So there is a mix of science-based decision here, and a mix of concrete, what we can do, practicalities. Because at the end of the day, we don't define the biomes for the sake of defining the biome. We define the biome for doing something, or implementing some measures there. So it's always a discussion. And again, it's, I would say, case by case. Depends on what you want to do. I'm not sure I answered your question.
Well, thanks, François. Very interesting talk. I was wondering, what do you think could be the future role of MPAs in preventing the introduction of invasive species? I'm asking this because we were talking about this earlier this morning, and in our group we did a study recently, and we kind of found some sort of biotic resistance in more diverse communities. So the rationale is more diverse communities to be more resistant to invasive species. And I'm wondering if what we found is something that is very local in this region, or if you have any information that this could be some sort of global thing happening.
Well, I think the trend of the thinking about that is that not only for invasive species, by the way, but for that kind of role is that, I mean, it might be fighting climate change, it might be against pollution, the invasive species. And the trend is to say that more you have an healthy place, better will be the reaction against that. The best carbon sinks are where you have a lot of positive effect or cyclic effect. If you don't have a cyclic effect, you don't have carbon sink. So an healthy ecosystem will react much better against all kind of aggression or threats that coming from abroad, whether they are invasive, whether they are CO2, or whether they are other kind of pollution. So an MPA is a place where supposedly your ecosystem is in good shape otherwise. So protecting the ecosystem, protecting the habitats will obviously be important for fighting invasive, for fighting climate change, for fighting pollution. So this is a very basic thinking. Now again, depend on the area, depend on but I'm very interested by what you said about invasive. And I think that for a long time. I mean, I told you that I've been working 12 years in the Oceanic Museum of Monaco. It was in the 90s, and maybe some of you remember the Colapa Taxifolia case. So I have to think about and to argue a lot about this issue. And what I always was thinking is that the invasive species, whatever they are brought by, whoever take in, can be invasive if the ecosystem is in bad shape. It's also the place where they are going that is important, as much as where they are coming from or what they are. So if you take an harbor, and it was the example you were talking about, an harbor, you will have a lot of invasive species in the harbor, because harbor is naturally not working. It's a place where it's slightly disturbed, and which is unbalanced and not working as an ecosystem. So if you put any kind, and then it's a place where invasive can come from the boat also. But there's two reasons. But even though there is no boat, but in the harbors there are boats, this is a place where it's destroyed and or degraded. So in any degraded place, the invasion or proliferation will occur, because the nature, you say in French, the nature horreur divine. The nature doesn't like emptiness or vacuum. No? It's filling immediately. So this is the case. I mean, if you have a degraded place, you will have proliferation issues. So if you keep a place healthy and good ecosystem working fully and healthy, you will have much less issues with it. I guess. I mean, it's my approach. Yeah.
You mentioned a while ago one of the key objectives for a place like Madeira would be to first identify all the existing habitats and then making sure that at least some amount of each habitat is protected in this area. Are there any minimums, any reachable goals that we should aim to percentage of habitats or areas or...
Well, that is what is possible and what is ideal. Ideally, I did not put that as a slide, but during our congress in Hawaii, we had a resolution adopted by the members, which says that ideally 30% of each habitat should be under protection. It's kind of number.
Globally or?
Globally. Globally, 30% of each habitat should be under protection in order to conserve conserve the ocean. It's under discussion because it's a very broad number. And what does it mean really? I mean, concretely, when you are looking at Madeira waters. But this is an idea. This is a kind of an idea. But I think personally that this number should be seen into the broader picture that would be 100% of the ocean is managed. If you have 100% of the ocean with territory managed under marine spatial planning, then you can have 30% of each habitat under conservation too. It's kind of a framework.
Hi, François. Thank you for your presentation. Just a question. Since there are no so specific guidelines to the categories of MPAs, can like a regional government or a regional NGO ask help to the MPA Commission of UECN to see when they are preparing a proposal of creation of an MPA?
Absolutely. Well, I didn't mention too much, but there are some guidelines existing. I mean, even books. But of course, beyond that, the Commission is existing for that purpose, to help government, to help members of IUCN when they have any kind of plan. So, of course, the Commission is there to guide the one who are doing things in the real world. Okay. No, absolutely.
More questions?
But maybe in French or in Spanish.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I didn't know that IUCN was coming up with a green list.
Okay.
Seems like a nice idea for not just developing those, but also for other countries to have something to follow as an example. And I'm just wondering if you have already any information compiled, or if you can give or can share with us at least some examples that you are aware of marine protected areas that have achieved and entered the green list.
I don't think I have this with me, but I can note that and make sure that I send you more precise information. I think there are some coastal MPAs that are already evaluated. The French committee of IUCN is working a lot on that. It's one of the pilots on green list, and they have some example in the marine. So I will look for that, and I will send to you the reports on coastal and marine we received.
Okay. More questions? Everybody looking for lunch now? François, once more, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And making yourself available for this.
No, please.
This.
And any follow-up on